And joining me now from London is British political commentator and Middle East expert Tom Gross. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Morning.
What more can you tell us about this legislation, and is it expected to pass?
Well, I think so, yes. It was first put forward actually when this government in Britain was elected in 2019, way back when Boris Johnson was still Prime Minister. And I'm not sure it's a accident that it's only coming about now with Johnson no longer in power. Michael Gove, who you mentioned, who's the government minister pushing it through, is one of the few people in public life who has understood really for decades that there's a juxtaposition between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, whether in politics, media, academia, or indeed local government. I've actually known Michael Gove since we studied together at Oxford more than 30 years ago, and he got it even back then. And he's taking action because there's no question that this singling out of Israel by local government, like by some in the media and academia, has nothing to do with caring about Palestinian rights. It's all about bashing Israel because Israel's a Jewish state. They don't care about Palestinians. If they did, they'd sometimes criticize Hamas or Fatah, who treat the Palestinians badly, or the governments of Lebanon or Syria. If they cared about human rights, they would draw attention to other countries that they do lots of trade with, like Morocco, that occupies Western Sahara, or Turkey, that occupies a part of the European Union. It occupies Northern Cyprus as well as Kurdistan. And there are other countless examples all over the world, but they single out only Israel, and they use language which, quite frankly, is anti-Semitic under the guise of anti-Zionism. And Michael Gove is one of the few people in Britain to really be determined to stamp this out. So he has introduced the legislation, and the Conservatives have a majority in Parliament. I believe it will pass.
And as commendable as Michael Gove's efforts are, can the British government truly successfully root out the weeds of anti-Semitism from the public sector?
Well, I don't think any government in the world can completely root out anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, it's a 2,000 years old kind of virus. But they can certainly make it difficult for anti-Semites to operate and for the virus to spread. And I think the current government in Britain is determined to do that. I might add also that the opposition party, now led by Keir Starmer, has a very different stance than under the previous leader, Jeremy Corbyn. So I believe Keir Starmer also understands that anti-Zionism is often a cover for anti-Semitism. And the Labour Party is divided on this issue, but the current leadership under Keir Starmer does get it and does want to stamp out anti-Semitism, including when Israel is used as a cover, as a kind of excuse for that anti-Semitism.
And actually, tell me about those efforts made by the Labour Party's new leader, Keir Starmer, as you mentioned, to distance themselves from Corbyn's leadership, or I guess legacy, you could say.
Well, he's been resolute about it. I mean, surprisingly so. He has suspended members of the Labour Party. He's quelled any signs of anti-Semitism. He's determined to stamp it out, partly for electoral reasons, to make the party more governable and look like a genuine liberal party that opposes all forms of racism, including anti-Semitism, but also because I think Keir Starmer truly believes that anti-Semitism is a terrible thing and wants to stamp it out for its own sake, not just for political reasons. But the entire left of the party, which is, Corbyn was essentially their leader, is very powerful. And probably what we see with these local councils that the government wants to take action against are Corbyn supporting Labour activists in those councils, using the issue of Palestine really just a sort of nasty way of bashing opposition within Britain. Like I said, they're local councils. They shouldn't really have a foreign policy. It's not the job of councils in Swansea or Lancaster in northern England or Leicester in the Midlands in central England. All these three councils are three of the ones that have been singled out by the government for being obsessed with bashing Israel. And they're also just not doing a job for their constituents. They're meant to be dealing with local issues, of concern to local people in Swansea or Leicester or Lancaster. They're not meant to be concerned with what's happening in another continent halfway across the world. And if they are meant to be concerned, then they ought to deal with, hundreds of other issues of minority or human rights throughout the world.
Tom Gross, thank you very much for your insight this morning.
Thank you.